Hey guys, Vicky here from 29 in September Studio, the company that helps small and startup fashion brands to succeed in the industry. Now, in this episode, I wanted to share with you 10 fashion manufacturing terms that you need to know if you're going to be going into production. Now, a lot of people struggle with terminology, particularly if they're new to the fashion industry, and it's really important to understand what your manufacturer is talking about and what you're actually agreeing to. So, if you've been confused by terms in the past, don't worry, you're not alone, and that's exactly why I'm doing this video, because it's something that a lot of people struggle with. Now, this is 10 abbreviations, 10 expressions that we're going to go through today. I do have a free glossary available which has 75 definitions of different industry words, and the details for that are below this video, and it will tell you how you can get access to that. So, number one, bulk, or you might hear go into bulk or approve to bulk. Now, bulk basically means that you've finished your sampling, you're happy with how the samples have gone, and you're ready to go to your main order. So, bulk means the final order of your products. The term go into bulk or approve to bulk is basically you giving the factory your approval. You're saying that you're happy with the way the samples have turned out and you're ready to commit to that final order. The second term I want to share with you is CMT, which stands for cut, make, and trim. This means that the factory has the ability to cut out the fabric, sew it together, and add any trims that are required. Maybe that's buttons, labels, zips, lace panels, whatever it might be. This can also be a type of quote, so you might see that your estimate says CMT only, and that's basically the factory telling you that they're not going to be providing any of those fabrics or trims, and that's something that you need to source yourself. Next up is CNY, which stands for Chinese New Year. And if you're working with suppliers or manufacturers in China, you're going to be hearing this a lot. Many factories close down for up to 6 weeks during the Chinese New Year celebrations, and there tends to be a lot of delivery issues around this time. Before Chinese New Year, because they're rushing to try and get everything finished. During Chinese New Year, because there's literally no boats or deliveries leaving China, and then after Chinese New Year, when everyone's getting back to work, a lot of the time factories have issues with staff not returning to work, and it just causes this massive issue that kind of goes on for months really, even though the actual New Year celebration is much shorter. And that's something to be aware of in January, February, and March. The date of the celebrations do change every year though, but it's generally around those times. Ex-factory is the date that the bulk will leave the factory, but with any kind of delivery dates or conversations around dates with your manufacturer, you need to be super clear about what you mean. So for example, the ex-factory date will be different to the shipping date in most cases because you need to factor in how long it is between the factory and the port for driving across land. So do make sure that you're really clear on exactly what's going on with any delivery dates to make sure that you don't miss any slots that you've booked for shipping, freight, whatever it might be. Number 5 is FOB, which stands for free on board, and this may be something that comes up when you receive quotes from suppliers. So it usually means that the cost of delivering the goods to the nearest port are included, as well as cost to manufacture the clothes. So that normally includes fabrics as well in FOB. Do check though, and I say this because that's what it's supposed to mean, but sometimes you find that factories can kind of twist quotes in their favour, so you want to make sure that everything's really clearly itemised and detailed. With FOB, it doesn't usually include the actual shipping or freight or any other fees like taxes, import duty, insurance, anything like that. Number 6 is grading or grade rules. Grading is the difference of the measurements between each size, and the grade rules basically tell the factory how much difference there needs to be between each point of measure and each size that you're creating your range in. Now the grade rules are going to be found on your tech pack or your spec sheet, and they're going to advise those measurements to the factory. It's going to be for each point of measure as well, and they're going to vary between different styles and different positions on that style. So do make sure that these are done custom for each style rather than just like a quick copy paste job. Some of them, you obviously will see patterns, but at the same time it is something that needs to be manually done. to make sure that you're covering all your bases and considering all of the different sizes that you're making. Number 7 is lead time. And that's the amount of time between confirming your order with the factory and when you're receiving the final goods at the distribution centre. Now again, this can be a tricky one, like I was saying previously with dates. So sometimes the factory are going to quote their lead time as just when it's leaving them, in which case you need to then speak to your courier or whoever's delivering your goods as well, so that you get the actual lead time from start to finish. And it may be in many cases that you need to speak to a couple of different places in order to get that date. So do make sure that you're on the same page with what dates everybody's talking about. Number 8 is the MOQ, and this is the big one. You're going to be hearing this constantly if you're a small business or if you're a startup. And MOQ means the minimum order quantity. And this is going to apply to various things. So it might be the minimum amount of garments that the factory is prepared to produce. It might be the minimum amount of fabric that you can buy, or the amount of trims, labels, barcodes, bags, whatever it might be. Sometimes you can get round the MOQs by paying a surcharge. Obviously that has a big impact on your costings though. But pretty much every business that you work with on a retailer kind of business to business basis, rather than just a shop that you go into, they're going to have minimums. And sometimes the minimum is something manageable like 50 units or 50 meters of fabric. Sometimes it's going to be 10,000. So the MOQ really dictates a lot about who you can actually do business with. Number 9 is tolerance, and tolerance is basically the amount of variance that you're willing to accept on a particular part of a garment without there being a penalty applied to your factory. So it is a little bit hard to understand, but hopefully an example will make it much clearer. So if, for example, a particular measurement on a garment I'm working on is supposed to measure 40 centimetres and I've applied a tolerance of 1 centimetre, that means that the factory could deliver the garment at that point measuring 39 centimetres or 41 centimetres without there being any issue or any incident. That would be accepted. If, however, the measurement was, say, 45 centimetres, that's out of tolerance. That's 5 centimetres difference, and we asked it for only 1. So it's at that point when you talk to the factory about them remaking things or having penalties applied and things like that. The tolerance is super important to have outlined on your tech pack so that you can control the quality and actually have some kind of fallback when you work with your factory. And finally, number 10 is critical path. And that's a document, usually in Excel, that's used to monitor the progress of your production, keep a record of any samples, any trims, anything that's been received, and it's basically really important for keeping manufacturing times on track. And the critical path, very important to know, is your responsibility just as much as the factories. You shouldn't be putting everything on the factory and expecting them to fix everything for you. You really need to be on top of the critical path yourself. So that's it for those 10 tips. If you want to learn more, there's lots more free content on the blog, which you can check out at 29andseptemberstudio.com. And as I said at the start, there's a free glossary of terms, which has about 75 industry words defined. There's a link on screen there, but I'll copy it in the comments box below so that you can download that. Basically, if you just join the mailing list, you get access to this download. There's actually a whole library of downloads that you'll get access to completely for free. And then you'll get helpful tips direct to your inbox each month. So I hope that's been helpful. As always, I love to hear from you, so feel free to get in touch if there's something you'd like to see more of.